Hi, welcome to iOS application development course. In the previous course, we have covered the following concept: overview of project navigator in Xcode and understanding the build tools. Okay, so now what we are going to do today, we are going to start programming in Swift, and then we are going to make applications for iOS. Now, to take you, we have referred the following system in the previous class. We are already done with the overview of Project Navigator. Apple documentation we will be referring as soon as we get into the code. But initially we want to get started with the Swift style guide, because Swift programming is required in order to build iOS applications. iOS applications can also be built using Objective-C code, but for now we will be using Swift programming language in order to design excellent iOS applications. Now, there will be a few things which we would be covering here, and the style guide is based on Apple's excellent Swift standard library style and also incorporate feedback from usage across multiple Swift projects within Google. So it is a living document and on the basis which the formatter is implemented. So let's have a quick look. What are we going to cover in this? So these will be the table of contents, and we'll try to cover up some very important things so that we get to know about basic implementations of Swift programming, followed by we will be implementing each and everything in Xcode. So I'm going to open Xcode. And we have created an iOS wallet app export project in the previous session. So what we will be doing, we will be testing our application here within the project, and we will be writing some simple codes which might be relevant to our project, and then we will proceed with the further stuff. Also, we do have a Swift playground over which we can test our codes. Swift playground online. So you can open Swift playground online also, in case if you don't have Xcode available by default. So you will be able to write basic Swift programs here on online Swift playground. So we can practice basic Swift first here, and then we can proceed to writing our applications in Xcode. So what am I going to do? We are going to do some basic tests using online Swift style guide, so as to have the basic understanding of how Swift codes are being implemented, and then we will get into writing the code. Okay, this is how we are going to implement. So I have got both the online Swift playground as well as the Xcode. So initially I'm going to get started with Swift playground. We will test basic Swift, and then we will get into writing the complete iOS application code. So here is the references for lesson 8. And here, the first one is online Swift playground. Okay. Now let us get into the application. So first of all, what do we have here is, we will see what we will be covering. You have to understand basic file names, the white space characters, escape sequences, different characters and modifiers, literals like string. This is very important. Then we have to understand types, variables, and functions. How do we import important packages? How do we comment codes in the file? Then how do we do overloading? Then here you have general formatting, which is required in Swift, usage of column limits, braces, semicolons, how to write one statement for line. This is the style guide for the Swift programming language. Followed by, there are various constructs like switch cases, enum cases, numeric literals, which we will be using. Then we will have naming conventions for the applications, and here are the programming practices. So how to write the initializers, how to access the properties, how to write the shorthand names, what are the optional types, all of these things we would be covering here. Followed by the documentation and the different comments depending on the general format, single sentence summary, parameters, returns, exception handling with throw tags, and others. So let us quickly get started with source file basics. So all the Swift source files ends with the extension .swift, and I believe this is already clear to you. And in the live application, which we are building, which is iOS wallet app code, you can see that we have a file known as landing view controller.swift, which is going to control our landing view scene. So I will open the storyboard also just to show you how the landing page looks like and how the transactions page looks like. So here is my landing view controller.swift file. And this is my main storyboard, which has multiple scenes in it. I have 3 scenes currently in it: the landing view controller scene, transaction view controller scene, and navigation controller scene. So I have selected the landing view controller scene, which will be controlled by my landing view controller.swift file. Okay. So whenever we write an iOS application, we always try to keep the name of the file as .swift because that is the basic convention. Now, so your file can contain the name in with the uppercase format. Okay. Then you can have the plus in it. You can have it like that. You can mention plus with respect to your classes so as to have it relevant. The file coding is UTF-8 encoded. We can use white space characters. The special escape sequences which are used in the programming languages /n/r. You can escape using double quotes, single quote, slash and /0. That sequence is reused rather than the equivalent code. This is also an escape sequence to escape 0. Now there are certain invalid characters, invisible characters and modifiers, okay, which we are going to make use of, and we are going to test that in Swift here. Now, so what do we have here is, you have various versions of Swift available over here. Currently, we would be testing on Swift release 5.1. Okay. Now, so what do we have here? Let's have a quick thing. So invisible characters such as the 0 width space and other control characters that do not affect the graphical representation of a string are always written as Unicode escape sequences, which means we have to use with /0. There are certain control characters, combining characters, and variation selectors that do affect the graphical representation of a string and are not escaped when they are attached to a character or characters that they modify. So if you are using such Unicode scalar, so we can present that in isolation, and we can understand when we will get into using the strings part. Now, coming to the main important part, here are certain examples of various types of strings which are used in the program. So suppose you're using any variation selector, then you have to use the escape character. But I'm going to start my programming somewhere here from the string literals. Okay. Okay. Just allow me 1 minute. What we can do is, okay, we can use the following. We have certain examples available here. But anyways, what I'll do, let me just take you to another one. So guys, instead of getting into the design files initially, let us just cover some of the basics of Swift programming language first, and then we will get into the style guides, because style guides have some certain limitations. So we are going to get started right from here initially. So what is Swift? Swift is a new programming language for iOS, macOS, watchOS, and tvOS. Okay. Swift provides its own version of all fundamental C and Objective-C types, including int for integers, double, float for floating point values, bool for Boolean values, and string for textual data. Okay. Swift also provides powerful versions of 3 primary collection types, which is array, set, and dictionary, as described in the collection types, but we will look into it. So here we are going to get started with the very first thing, which is the constants and the variables. Okay. So whenever we start programming here, the first thing could be a hello world. So what you can do is you can import the foundation and you can print. So suppose whenever we start programming, the very first thing which we do need to do is make the computer understand our language and do something which we want. So the first thing which we want always is to see the output which I'm instructing the system to print. Okay. So in Swift, what we can do is we can call the statement print, and let's say here is a sample that we can quickly print hello world, which is one of the basics. Okay. So when I run it, you can quickly see that the hello world has been printed. Okay. So print is the function with which we can print the value of anything, whatever we want. So this is the very first important thing. Okay, Pratik, is that clear?
Yes.
So you can print hello world. I think you have already opened online Swift Playground along with me.
No, I'm just following you. I'm just
Okay.
watching you.
Okay, you'll do it once we are done with the video, right? Like that?
Yes, yes.
Cool. So this is the first step. Okay. Let's say printing something on the console using Swift. So this is the comment. The double slash, the double forward slash with a backslash, which I have used here, is to comment the statement what I'm trying to do. Okay. So this is the very first step, printing a hello world in Swift programming language. Now, the second thing what we do need to do is we do need to provide some input to the machine, and using that input, the output should come. Okay. So using the constants and variables in Swift. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to make an example. Let's say heart rate calculator in Swift. Suppose I want to build a simple program like that, maximum heart rate calculator in Swift. So the default equation of maximum heart rate is 220 minus user age. Okay, something like that. That becomes the formula to calculate the maximum heart rate. So here you can see that maximum heart rate is a variable. Age could be a variable because different people have different age, but this value is a constant. Okay, can you see that? So
Yes.
whenever declare a constant using let keyword. So when I do this let, I'm going to create a constant, and this is going to be my value constant. Let's say I'm going to call it as value constant, which is 220. Okay. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to print the value of value constant. Okay. And I'm going to run it. So once I run it, you can quickly see that I have created a variable value constant. I have stored the value 220 into this value, and this is a constant. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes.
We might also do in this way, like value of the constant is okay. So with Swift, what we'll do, we'll have a print statement, not with the plus operator, but I'll show you the concatenation part as soon as we progress. Okay. So you can declare the constant using let, like this. Now, so we could have done in this way. In fact, let's say we could have the value of constant is, and then we can run. So you can get something like this. The value of constant is 220. Okay. And I will show you the concatenation part as soon as we progress to the string section. I don't want to do it right now. So you can see we can declare a constant. Now, similarly, you can declare the variables using var keyword. Okay. So you can create a variable var. Let's say I want to create two variables. One variable is going to be age. Suppose my age is 31. So I have inserted a value 31 in it. Second variable I want to create is max heart rate. This is going to be my second variable. Okay. Max heart rate. Now what I want to do is I want to perform some processing using constant and variables. Because why do we need data? We need input data, and we give input data to the computer so that the computer can process it and give us some output. Okay. So we are going to process it, and to process it, we are going to have it in this format. Max heart rate is equal to value constant minus age of the user. And I'm going to print the max heart rate of the user is, and I'm going to print the max heart rate. Is that clear, Pratik? Can you see that?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this will be output of the program. Clear? So once I run it, so you have got unexpected second identifier in variable declaration. There is an accidental break. Value constant minus age. Okay. So we got the string. I think ये इस वाले में जो प्रिंट फंक्शनैलिटी हमने इम्प्लीमेंट कर दिया, कमेंट्स हमने इम्प्लीमेंट कर दिया, सेमीकोलंस के साथ में भी हम प्रिंट कर सकते हैं, एंड हमारी इंटीजर वेरिएबल सब आ गए, बाइनरीज आ गई, हमारे मैथमेटिकल फॉर्मूलेज आ गए.
यहाँ पर डबल कोलन आएगा. आउटपुट ऑफ द प्रोग्राम प्रिंट मैक्स हार्ट रेट ऑफ द यूजर इज, आई थिंक वहां पर डबल कोलन एंड स्पेस आएगा.
नहीं 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 नहीं, वो तो दैट वाज जस्ट द ऑर्डर विथ व्हिच आई प्रिंटेड. सो व्हाट आई जस्ट नीड इज ये मैक्स हार्ट रेट जो भी हम डिफाइन कर रहे हैं ना, either we should separate it with the lines with the semicolons, or what we can do is either we can separate it with this way. So max heart rate I can run that way. अब यहाँ पे क्या आ रहा है ना, found an unexpected second identifier in the variable declaration. Second identifier कहाँ पे variable declaration? Okay, not a problem. So what I'll do, I'll just implement it this way. So what we can do is we can quickly declare it and get it done in the same way. You know what's happening? Actually, the problem is here. I can do it this way. I can quickly put it like this. Variable max heart rate in this way. And I can get that run. Okay, like this. So because what it was saying, we can create the variables without specifying this VAR also. So that is what is the issue in this online Swift one. But anyways, we got that clear.
Okay, so Swift में separate variable declare करना जरूरी नहीं है. You can directly declare it in a one sentence and वो match कर देना.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
You can quickly declare it and post the values. Okay. So now what we have got the outcome in this way. So you cannot declare it individually and then assign the values. Even if you want to do that, we could have done that in this way. So we can define the variable max heart rate, and we could have defined it something like this, that initially it's going to be 0. Then also it's fine. Okay, are you understanding? This way we can, but in case you're not initializing it and I'm just using it in the new line, then it's going to throw the error that this value is not initialized. So we do need to initialize the value, and then we can perform it multiple lines also. Okay.
Okay.
I believe this is clear.
कुछ ना कुछ मतलब 0 तो 0 लेकिन value declare करनी ही करनी है.
Yes, we do need to initialize the variable. Okay. So this is what we have done. We got to know how to print the information. Then we took one example also, calculation of the max heart rate. So what we did with this heart rate, we got to know that we have some constants to process. We have some variables also. So now we got to know how to declare the constants and the variables. Okay. So you can quickly see that constants and variables must be declared before they are used. This is the first statement. Okay, so you have to declare the variable and a constant, and you have to initialize them also. Clear? So this
Yes.
is the declaration. When we create let value constant equal to 220, this is the declaration, and this part is the initialization, that I initialize the value with 220. And we don't need semicolons at the end of the code. Semicolons you can use, or else you can avoid it also. Wouldn't be a problem. Okay, we can run Swift code without using semicolons. Is that clear?
Yes.
Each and every statement should be on a new line of code. Now you can declare constants with the let keyword, variables with a where keyword, and here is an example of how constants and variables can be used to track the number of login attempts a user has made. But I have created the constants and variables to implement max heart rate calculator in Swift. I believe this is clear.
Yes.
I'm going to download this file, and I'm going to keep this file in the code, and I'm going to call it as variables constants.swift. Okay, this is the program which we have done. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to keep it under a new folder. Let's say I'm going to create a new folder. This is going to be Swift Basics. I'm going to paste it within Swift Basics, and I'm going to copy my Swift Basics here in your iOS wallet app export. iOS wallet. So I think we are maintaining all these source codes within Git also. Let me just quickly check. iOS wallet app, I think this is the one. So I'm going to paste it here, Swift Basics, and I'm going to push it on GitHub also. Okay, so now you can see that variable constants.swift. This file is going to be updated, and this is going to be my lesson 8. I'm just pushing it. Now I'm going to the next piece of code which we want to implement over here. So you are clear with how the variables and constants are created. This is clear?
Yes.
Now, so what can we do? We can also make use of annotations. What is the meaning of annotations? With annotations, you can provide a type annotation when you declare a constant or a variable. Okay, which means you can create a variable and you can annotate it that it is going to be a string. Okay, you can define the type of the variable. How this helps? This helps us to be clear about the kind of values the constant or variable can store. Writing a type annotation by placing a colon after the constant or variable name, followed by a space, followed by the name of the type to use. So here is an example of type annotation. We are creating a variable welcome message, and the welcome message is of string type. Okay. So what is the meaning? Earlier we created the constants. Let's say we created a constant value constant, and we created the variable age. Here we have directly initialized the values. But what we can also do, we can make use of type constants, type annotations, in order to define the type of value which we will be storing in the constant and the variables. So you can define it like this: type annotations. This is going to look something like this. So I'm going to have, let's say, let value constant. I can quickly define that it's going to be integer. Okay, like that. And I can say my max heart rate is also going to be an integer. Okay. Finally, my age is also going to be an integer. So like that, we can define the type annotations. Okay. Then I can define the value. Let's say the value constant will be 220, and max heart rate is equal to value constant minus age. Let's say age is going to be 31, and I'm age, and finally I'm going to print max heart rate. Is that clear? We can define the code this way also. Okay. And when you're using integer, you can directly define int. Int is also a type here. We can define the int, integer variable. Okay. Int stands for integer. So there are a few constants. What type of primitive constants are available? That I'm going to quickly tell you. I think here there will be the basic operators. I will quickly show you the type of primitives which we can use. We have the collection type. Okay. Anyways, what you can do is you can use string, you can use double, you can use int, that is the integer. Okay. So these are the common which we can use. So string is for names and anything like that. Integer int is for values without decimal, and the double is a value with decimals. Okay, is that clear? Suppose I want to define something like, let's say I want to define string type annotations. Okay, so to do that, what am I going to do? I'm going to say, let's say username. I'm going to create a username and it's going to be string. Okay, so I'm going to have the value of username as, let's say my username is Hackweather maybe. Okay, so I'm going to print. So I'm going to print the username, and you can quickly see that the value of username is Hackweather. We can also define double type annotations. So this is for the values which, and this is going to be a username. It's not a constant, so I'm going to call it as a variable. Okay. I'm going to define the type annotations. Let's say I want to define a type annotation as height. Okay. Height. So height is going to be double. So I can quickly define it as a double. So this is type annotation. And I can then store the height as, let's say, 5.9 inches. Okay. And I can quickly print my height. So once I run, you can see that my height is 5.9. Clear? So what you can do is type annotations helps you define what kind of data you're going to store within the variable for further processing. I believe this is clear.
Yes.
Great. So we have printed the constants and variables. You already know how we can quickly print. You already know how we can comment. So we can comment a single line using this backslash. You can also comment a piece of code or a multi-line code with /*, and you can close the comment with */. Okay. So now this piece of code, which is in the multi-line comments, will not execute. Okay, will not execute when we are going to run the program. So now you can see that I've got an error because the constants are not defined. So what I can do is, instead of this, I just don't want to print this part. Okay, so I'm going to create a multi-line comment. Okay, this is a single line comment, the above one, the type annotations part, and I have made this as a multi-line comment. Okay, I'm going to run. So only this code will execute. Okay, followed by the second code. Can you see that?
Yes.
So these are the examples of type annotations and the comments. So I'm going to quickly download it also. I'm going to call it as type annotations, comments. So I'm going to copy that and push it in the folder. And this is going to be my iOS wallet app. Under Swift basics. And again, I'm going to push it on Git. Okay, Pratik. So what do we need to do? You need to follow this resource. Currently, we are in the section, the basics. Okay. Followed by, we have to cover up the following important basics of Swift. Once we are done with that, we are going to write our iOS applications. Is that clear? So we are done with
Yes.
the following part: constants, variables, printing of the variables, and the comments part. Then we have the further like semicolons, integers, integer bounds. Okay. So I want, if you can practice this article, it is going to be very, very helpful. Okay. Otherwise, we
I
can
will.
continue from here. That won't be a
No,
problem.
I will. I'll go through this article because this is something which you are teaching me, right?
Yeah.
And going to help me in security stuff.
Absolutely. This is very, very important because once you understand how the programming is being done, this is what you will be debugging in your hacking sessions. Okay. How the variables
Okay.
are created, because eventually you have to modify all of these things. You have to modify the code with the debuggers. Okay.
Okay.
And you have to disassemble, you have to modify the disassembled code. So if you understand how the code is done, then you will be easily able to modify it.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. अच्छा सर मुझे